Hang on. Keep talking for a little bit.
Hello, hello, hello. Earth to Mars.
No,
All right.
I can hear you.
Great. Great.
I took a showgirl for my bride.
It is great to meet you. And
Yeah, likewise.
I've been a big fan for like a very long time.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh.
Yeah, bordering on their hero worship even.
Oh, right. Well, I'm off then. So see you later.
I've had very few. Well, I've had quite a few bands that I've become obsessed with over the
Right.
years. Starting with
Okay.
Alice Cooper, and then Sparks, and then Pistols, and then
Yeah.
and then in the 90s or the late 80s, 90s. What was it? The 90s, wasn't it? The first
It was
Auteurs.
yeah.
And I was really into that. I didn't think that was the best album. There's a couple of tracks on there that I thought were just, I knew it was special. And then I just became really into Baader Meinhof. I'll explain more about that later on.
That is a good one, Baader Meinhof. Yeah.
It sparked an unnatural interest in terrorism for me.
Yeah, it has that effect. Yeah.
How did you? Might as well talk about that. How did you? How did that concept come up?
Well, it's tricky to think about it now because it seems so long ago, and I was in a very different sort of state of mind then. I think what I wanted to do, I think that I wanted, with all the kind of stuff around the kind of 90's, uh, I don't really want to say the words, but the 90's pop thing that was going around. I was very much, I was very much against all that, to put it mildly. So I kind of wanted to kind of, and musically, apart from a few things like Pulp's Common People, it seemed terribly kind of vanilla, in many ways, and just like, it all sounded like, I mean, back then you could kind of say it and people would sort of know what you were talking about, but now if you say it, it's like, what you must be like 5,000 years old. But it sounded like Herman's Hermits and Freddie and the Dreamers to me, a lot of that stuff. And I just sort of thought, what's happened here, and why are people doing this? So I wanted to kind of write a protest album, but I didn't really, other than protesting about groups that sounded like Herman's Hermits and Freddie the Dreamers. That's not really much of a protest album, if you know what I mean. There are better things to write protest albums about, but that's kind of all I had, really, because I was sort of, I had, I wasn't starving, and I wasn't oppressed particularly, so I kind of made up this sort of idea of a protest album. It became a kind of like an art protest album, because I thought that by that point the idea of like protest songs were kind of a bit redundant anyway, as they kind of are now, really. Not that the idea of protesting is redundant, but the idea of making it into a song is redundant, because it's so, you could do it in so many more instant ways, now.
It's very difficult, isn't it, to write a protest song without sounding like a corny guitarist with acoustic guitar, bang.
Or without just sort of getting it, or without, it's very difficult to do something that I would want to do something kind of quite nuanced. I mean, I kind of did write. I sort of wrote a protest song a few years ago. I wrote a really obvious one called "Smash the System," and it was just so obvious. And so I have written protest songs, I suppose. But bottom line was my attempt at kind of doing sort of it was a sort of just this kind of oblique kind of protest album.
It seemed very subversive at the time, I suppose, because I was, listening to the music. I was playing and stuff in bands, so I was very aware of what was going on with Britpop and all of that. And I agree, it was very vanilla, and to have suddenly Baader Meinhof, and you were kind of tagged on in a little way, the Auteurs, to that. I thought maybe I'm wrong, but with Baader Meinhof, it was like making a a very kind of strange antisocial statement that I thought was very appealing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was meant to be really kind of sociopathic, really. And it was very antisocial. It was set up that way. I kind of thought it was kind of quite funny and quite perverse.
Very funny. It's very humorous. And how did you even have Baader Meinhof going on your radar anyway?
I don't know. It just came into my head. It came in. There was a lyric on the previous Auteurs album, After Murder Park, on a song called Tombstone, which I think the lyric was, they're taking out the garbage in the Columbia Hotel and take the fucking building out in Baader Meinhof style, something like that. I'm quite kind of like paraphrasing my own stuff. And it's so the Baader Meinhof thing came, and I just had a memory of it being on the news from kind of when I was a kid. And I sort of knew enough about it, and I think I bought like one book. I bought like the Tom Vague book, because this was before the internet. So you couldn't really just like Google stuff. And that was it. And I didn't really do any research on it. I just kind of spun out with it rather than make it kind of like a sort of reportage, or kind of. I didn't want it to be like historic. I didn't want it to be like historical. I just wanted it to be like a weird kind of art state, almost like a kind of fever dream art statement, if you like. And I also had this idea for a kind of sound that I wanted, which was the sound that became the Baader Meinhof thing, which was Kuljit doing the Indian percussion, and like the kind of really kind of cranky old sort of bass synths and stuff like that. I didn't really want any sort of kind of like Herman's Hermits guitars or anything like that. Just wanted like really any guitar was going to just kind of come through the speaker, and you'd know it was a guitar because it'd just be so fucking loud, and that would be it. And I didn't want drum kits, conventional drum kits. I didn't really want like electronic drums. Didn't want to do electronic music. I want to do something organic with synthesizers and Indian stuff and sort of weird strings. And I had that idea in my head, but I didn't know what the lyrics were. And then when the kind of Baader Meinhof thing came into my head, I sort of realised that was it. I could put these two things together, and I could make something. And when I'd done it, I didn't really know what it was. I still don't really know what it is, but I sort of made it anyway. Like sort of like that's kind of good art, isn't it? You just make.
It was my favourite album. That's what you were making. That's
cool. That's good. Well, please hear it. Yeah, a few people like it, so it's good. Yeah.
I love the guitar break on "Meet Me at the Airport" as well. That's got
quite
a Santana sort of feel suddenly to it. I like the way that it goes off in different directions, and then
that was the guitar break. That was again. I got sort of fed up with recording guitars in the kind of way we've been recording them in kind of sort of proper studio. So that was just it was just my guitar through one of those old little Big Muff fuzz boxes, a really old one. And I bought it for like £3 or something when I was like 16. It cost a fortune now, and it was just one of those put through a Porter Studio, but it deliberately put in the wrong inputs, so it was just like overloaded as soon as it went in, and so it was just this explosion of sort of distortion, and actually good distortion, like all analog distortion. So it was really good. Yeah.
Something's rattling a bit on your mic. Is it? Have you got it on you? Or
no, I haven't. No.
It's sort of like a rattle, like it's too loud. Doesn't matter. It's livable with, but
okay, all right, okay.
But yeah, I also like one of the great things about the album is that all the little cool sounding phrases, and as I say, I was already for some reason because I knew about the Baader Meinhof.
Yeah.
I was interested in all that because I was interested in the PLO before then.
Of course,
I found all that kind of stuff, hijacking airplanes and diverting them to be quite a romantic kind of.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And that made me kind of interested in, and I didn't know what the Baader Meinhof gang was about, apart from they helped the PLO once.
Yeah.
I thought they were interesting characters, and it is still a very interesting story of those group of radicals that got together, and they were like front news headlines for quite a long time, weren't they?
They were, yeah, and they kind of, you know, and they kind of shut down Germany, you know, West Germany, really, pretty much with the amount of kind of security, you know, checkpoints and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they knew what they were doing at all, you know, which is kind of interesting as well. It just, you know, it's kind of radical, but you know, also kind of extremely wrong-headed, you know.
Yeah, but there was, I think there's something a little bit cool about especially with girl terrorists with guns.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was the thing. I wasn't kind of, you know, I had to kind of be quite careful about that at the time, because it was sort of like, you know, because you kind of get, you know, it's in the days of like when, you know, the enemy, you know, was sort of seen as being sort of important. If you said stuff like, well, I think that girl terrorists are quite cool, they'd sort of come for you, you know.
I think
But
even now,
well, even now, yeah. But I think we can sort of say that, you know, I think we're kind of okay in sort of like in a ridiculous way, in sort of like the radical chic Patty Hearst. It's sort of like it is what it is, you know. Okay, you know, we know these were bad, you know, good riddance, and you know there was a lot of bad things, but unfortunately, you know, it looked quite cool. It's like the Manson girls. I mean, they were quite cool, you know.
Yeah,
There's no way you can get around that, you know.
you can't get around it. There's been a lot more bloodshed with terrorism in the last sort of 30
Yeah.
years. Around the time of Baader Meinhof and the PLO, when it was just hijacking, not blowing
Yeah,
yourself up.
yeah.
There was
The good
there
old
was-
days.
yeah, the good old days, the gentleman hijackers of
That's
the old.
it. Yeah, that's the Stuart Lee thing, isn't it? About the IRA being the gentleman terrorists, giving a
Yeah,
warning and all that sort of stuff.
that's it. Yeah, but you know, there's something about an event happening outside of society's control, like
Mm,
even 11, uh,
mm.
that is kind of exciting, you know, not in a, you know, particularly malevolent way, but there's something kind of something rattling the cage
Yeah,
is an
yeah,
event,
yeah.
you know, that is.
When things kind of go. I mean, I like things when they kind of go off the script. You know,
Yeah,
that's all good fun. You know,
yeah. It's a
I'm not.
shame.
I'm not saying 9/11 was good fun, but you
Shame
know,
about the death and the blood and stuff, but
yeah. That's a drag.
the
Yeah,
actual idea itself
yeah.
isn't bad.
Yeah.
It's like a bit like when there's a dog in the playground at school, you know, and you're having your lesson and someone sees there's a dog running around in the playground and suddenly, it's a dog in the
Yeah,
playground. And
yeah. Or when the one I always like is sort of like on you know, I mean, I'm not a horse racing fan or anything like that, but when you know, when the horse loses its rider, you got a loose horse on the
yeah,
sort of, on the track. I like that. Yeah, big
is
fan
the,
of loose horse. Yeah,
is the jockey going to die? Kind of thing.
yeah.
So before the Auteurs, what were you doing? That's something I don't know about, which I've always been
Oh
interested.
right. Oh, well, I was in a band called the Servants, who were going for about
Actually, I
five.
did know that.
Yeah. Who were going for about sort of 5 or 6 years before the Auteurs. I was in them for 5 years, but I was in the second lineup, which is sort of like it was like the cut the crap version of the Servants. And we sort of knew we were the cut the crap version as well, which is weird, but it just sort of like continued for 5 years. It was kind of quite good. It's good, you know. And I'm still David, the lead singer and vocalist. I still see to this day. He's very good songwriter. Wrote a really good solo album about 2 years ago, which I played on. But yeah. So
It
yes, so
wasn't
that
really, it wasn't
so
really your thing, as in you weren't the main man in that.
I wasn't the songwriter. No. I was like the lead guitar player.
Right.
When
Okay.
the band still have lead guitar players. I don't know.
Yeah, they
Sounds like
do.
being in the shadows, doesn't it? Something like.
So when did you start? Had you already started writing songs? Were you?
I'd written songs before I was in the service. I kind of stopped because I figured I didn't think they were much cop. So I thought I just had to I kind of had to I felt I kind of had to do some sort of almost like apprenticeship to get
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
And I could play the guitar, but I didn't really have much idea of being. I'd been in bands, but I didn't have much idea of being in a band in London, doing gigs in places that might be important.
Are you from London?
No, I'm from Surrey. Then I lived in Portsmouth.
All right. What part of Surrey?
Walton on Thames.
All right. I'm in Surrey. I'm in Guildford.
Oh, are you right? Yeah.
Nice Surrey is.
Yeah, God's own country. Yeah. Yeah.
So how did it come from leaving the Servants to deciding the Auteurs is what you're going to do?
I think what really happened was my sort of opportunities of being on the dole ran out, and I had to kind of get off my arse and do something properly, because the Servants was kind of a lot of it was about being on the dole and watching daytime TV, really. And I got to about sort of like 24, and I thought, well, I really need to do something, and I probably can. I suddenly realised could write. I got bought a studio, and I realised I could write songs again on that. And in the time I'd spent not writing songs, the songs had got better, and I suddenly was kind of, I'm pretty confident with these songs. So, and also in that kind of dole age time of the 80s, late 80s, my dole was running out. My time, I'd sort of been about 5 years variously dodging any kind of employment, because I had no intention of working at all. So I thought I must actually get a proper band together that I'm kind of the leader of, and I'm the one taking control, and I'll give it a kind of my last shot or something. So at least I've had a go,
I think a lot of bands that were in, especially 70s, 80s, 90s as well, couldn't have survived without the dole and squats.
Definitely not. Yeah,
and it's a lot harder to. They've got it all fucking sewn up now.
Well, they have, yeah. I mean, but the thing also was that, I kind of managed to. I think I managed to do the Auteurs just at the right time. Probably kind of similar to, when you were kind of, in the punk kind of days, when suddenly record labels were giving money to bands. And this only really happened just at that point from about 1992, 93 onwards. And it went on for about 5 or 6 years. And so I got in on the kind of early doors on that. So I'm very lucky that they were kind of taking sort of, they weren't giving money to kind of guitar bands. And suddenly they just were.
Sort of after Stone Roses, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was kind of that. It was like the Stone Roses, probably like the Lars and things like that. And there was sort of like, and I think to be honest, I think what also happened is that the NME had tried to sell kind of hip hop to the NME audience, and the NME audience weren't buying it, because the hip hop audience certainly weren't buying the NME, because they didn't need the NME, And so the NME had to kind of put their money somewhere else, basically. So they had to kind of try on, go back to guitars and make themselves feel kind of stupid again,
Yeah. So were the Auteurs already together, and then you approached the label? How did that come about?
It was just really weird. I just demoed pretty much half the first album, where I did everything, and then I got a band together, which was my girlfriend and the guy Glenn, who I went to school with. They're the only people I could get to play a band, so it was a 3-piece. And they were just the 3 people I knew who could do it. They were all into it, and we did about I sent a demo out and got a few gigs. We got reviewed by the NME, I think, on our 3rd gig, and by about the 4th gig, we were kind of like had major labels after us. It was just ridiculous. From what had been 5 years of like doing nothing and struggling to get gigs in the Servants, it was very, very quick. And it was good. It was very exciting, good fun, and it was very that sort of first year or so, when the album first came out, was kind of the best fun I had in the 90s. I mean, I've had good fun since then. It's all been good, but some of the 90s were a bit of kind of I didn't suit the 90s very well.
Yeah. Showgirl was the big kind of song off that first album, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I got kind of. I mean, it got. Yeah, people liked it. I mean, it didn't. Like, wasn't a hit single or anything, but it did. You know, it kind of. You know, it did all right. You know, still gets played every so often. So you know,
I remember there was a big buzz about that at the
it
time.
was.
I had a friend who worked at BBC, and
Yeah.
he said, "Have you heard this? You like this?" And I hadn't really heard it, but anyway, he loved the bit where it suddenly stopped.
I took a showgirl for my ride.
Yeah.
Little bits like that in a song, you know, unexpected.
Yeah.
Bit.
Yeah, I never. Again, I never really thought about those. I did. That was just the way it was written. When I wrote it, it just had that bit in it, and I hadn't thought about it. And you just do it, and then suddenly people say, "That bit's really good." And yeah, I suppose I hadn't just did it. Really, it's just instinctive, you know.
By accident, it's the good
Yeah,
bits happen.
I mean, I'm an idiot savant, really. You know, no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah, the
second album was
Now I'm a Cowboy. Yeah,
I'm a Cowboy. That's right.
yeah.
I think I preferred the second album. I had.
Oh, did you? Right? Yeah.
You know what? This is funny, right? I met Peter Perrett from The Only
Oh, yeah.
One. He was at for one weird evening. Him and his manager came over to my place, and we were all quite stoned and listening to records and stuff. And I said, "Oh, by the way, there's a band that has nicked the solo from Out There in the Night."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Go and play it." And I played it, and it fucking hell. Was it actually? Because it does sound extraordinarily like it.
It was, yeah. John, and I met John Perry about 6 years ago, and he came up. He said, "You nicked that solo, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah, I did." And I know Peter sort of now, and yeah, we kind of laugh because Rod Liddle, the famously controversial journalist, whenever he talks about music, the only two bands he mentions are the only ones of my band. So we're bonded by being Rod Liddle's favourite bands.
He also likes Eater as well, Rod Liddle.
There you go. Yeah.
We're bonded as well.
Right.
That was great that solo in there, whether it was from it, but that was Chinese Baby.
John Perry might play a bit better than me, but yeah.
So you're a pretty good musician, aren't you? You're not just a
I'm a dad.
Guitar. I'm not really a great musician, but you're a proper musician, aren't you?
Yeah, I can play. Yeah. On my day, yeah.
Classically trained.
I was classically trained. Yeah. I must still play. I still kind of do a bit of classical playing every so often, just to kind of keep, you know, because you can't replay electric guitar on your own. You know what I mean? It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
You know? So you can play classical guitar and flamenco guitar on your own. It's like, you know, it's like being in Seville around here. You know, when I get going.
I don't like jamming. I've not met anyone else that doesn't like jamming. But I see no point in jamming. But I see a point in writing a song and playing a song, but my song. But jamming, I don't find that. How do you feel about jamming?
Not a big jammer. No, not at all. I mean, I think it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, maybe kind of. I get the impression with jamming, maybe sort of like half the band enjoy it, and certainly none of the audience enjoy it. It's very limited. I mean, I can see jazz. I can see like the musicians enjoy it, and you know whether you kind of into jazz or not is whether neither here nor there. If you're into it, you enjoy it. But I see why it's one of those things that musicians like doing more than for themselves, more than the audience maybe appreciate it.
Yeah. That's why I've spoken to quite a few guitarists who have loads of guitars,
and
loads of guitarists who have loads of guitars. But that's another thing. I don't see the point. Like jamming, like I don't see any point more. Maybe 2 guitars is good. Like maybe 3.
Well, I've got a few guitars, I have to admit, but I haven't. The thing I haven't got is many effects pedals. I don't really use. I just use like one fuzz box, and that's it. But I just like guitars. So I mean, it's a weakness. I suppose some people would. It's like a cheaper version of vintage sports cars or something like that.
I can't really tell the difference between really expensive guitars and cheap guitars.
Well, you're quite right. I mean, sometimes vintage guitars are pretty ropey, you know, and there's a reason why manufacturers make kind of pretty cheap, decent guitars.
Yeah, so I think the cheap guitars today are much better than the cheap guitars of the clumps.
Yeah, you can get a great, really great guitar for about for under £300, really.
Yeah. What was the first band you went to see live?
Shadows.
The Shadows.
Not like the '60s, obviously. The Shadows in 1978. Which I really liked. One of the first albums I was into was the Shadows' 20 Golden Greats. Because the great thing about that album was it was one of the first bits of. I think it's the first album I bought with my own money. I think it came out in '77, something like that. So I would have been like 10. And I remember it had the advert of like someone with a tennis racket, and it seemed, but they didn't have the Shadows in it at all, so you didn't see how uncool they were. But I had a vague idea that the guitar player looked like Buddy Holly, which I thought was quite cool. But other than that, I didn't.
Is that
I had
with the silhouettes?
Yeah, the silhouettes. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, great cover. And it's just like, oh, this. What is this? Even now, I kind of get a chill thinking about it. This kind of weird, kind of psychedelic, kind of Aztec music, and these great guitar sounds, twanging. So I'm a big fan of like twanging guitars, all that kind of stuff. And they had great tunes. And that run of singles, they had, from about up to 1963 or something. It's fantastic. And of course, I didn't know then that they were kind of even as a 10-year-old, I knew that Cliff Richard was not good. This was rubbish. And I still maintain I'm not having any of the kind of like Cliff revisionism. I think he's still crap. He can still fuck off. But the Shadows I just thought were amazing. And so I went to see. My dad took me to see them in 1978. They had that horrible single out, The Deer Hunter. Which is crap, obviously. But the great thing was they were so fucking loud. I mean, I had to go outside because I was 10 and 10 or 11, my ears were hurting so much. They were just like incredible. And it probably wasn't, but I still maintain it was like the loudest concert I've ever been to. I can't imagine anyone like, I've seen Sun, I've seen My Bloody Valentine. I still think the Shadows were louder.
I went to see quite a few bands before I went to see the loudest gig I ever went to, and I thought each one was loud. So Sparks, I thought that was pretty loud.
Yeah.
And then I went to see Queen, and they were fucking really loud. Were you into like glam rock and stuff like that? Was it a bit before your time? Also, before you do that, I remember now on the Shadows thing. Like I know quite a lot of guitarists, especially like Hank Marvin, and they talk about him godlike. And I don't know what it is, but I missed the appeal of the Shadows, maybe because I'm not a guitarist. But they were already too old by the time I started getting into music. And Cliff Richard obviously was always off-putting. And as great as guitarist he might have been, he looked a fucking idiot, I thought.
Well, because I think maybe the difference is what I was trying to say is because when the 20 Golden Greats came out, I had no perception of what they really were, because I didn't remember them at the time, but they'd been so sort of dead in the water. I had absolutely no idea about them. And when I did start to see pictures of them, I quickly kind of went off them, really, because
if you ever saw Hank Marvin playing something on the Lulu show or something, it was
well, I can't remember, when even when I saw them in 1978 was the point when I sort of was the record, I was kind of going off them a bit because I was realising they were so uncool. And then they came on in like sort of like Red Velvet kind of, showbiz, kind of like Jimmy Tarbuck kind of clothes or something. And even though they were fucking loud and they were actually pretty great, there was a very, even my 10, 11-year-old mind, I could sniff out You know, I could sniff out there was bad showbiz going on. You know,
That's strange though. That I wouldn't have thought your first record and first gig would be the Shadows. So
oh
that's
yeah.
quite almost quite traditional, really.
I suppose, yeah, really, yeah.
So what happened? What happened in between the Auteurs and then Black Box Recorder? I know there was Baader Meinhof in the middle, but
Yeah. Well,
but
after Baader Meinhof, as I said with Baader Meinhof, I had a very set kind of idea of the sound of it, and I mean, in a way, it was kind of it was certainly an artistic success, and it was probably such an artistic success that I couldn't repeat it. So I had nowhere to go with it really, because I couldn't top it. I couldn't make a Baader Meinhof 2, or I couldn't, you know. I couldn't really, and the sound in itself was quite limited. It worked on one short album, but I don't know if it could have carried over like 3 albums or something like that. So that's kind of where
you did a gig, didn't you, at Dingwalls or somewhere? I
yeah,
remember.
we did 2 gigs. Yeah,
I wish I'd come to one of them. What were they like? How did they go
they
down?
were great. I mean, I had a really good band. Weirdly, I had Malcolm Ross from Joseph K playing bass. I don't know what was going on there, of all things. You know, um, and we did 1 gig in London and 1 gig with John Cale in Paris, and that was it really. And it was kind of about
To do? Did you enjoy playing those songs live?
yeah. I mean, it was challenging. They were hard to play, and
Yeah,
they're hard songs to play. I
they are.
mean,
Yeah. How many people were in the band?
uh, about 8.
8.
There were about 8. There were 2 drummers,
Uh,
um, 2 drummers, Cooljet, the percussionists, violin, cello, then bass, and guitar, or 7 or 8, whatever. Yeah, so it was expensive to kind of carry it, take it around.
I kind of hoped that you would all appear because I was thinking I wish I could go to that. I lived in Wales at the time,
Yeah,
and I thought I wish I could go. And I thought if I imagined it, and I kind of saw you all in gorilla outfits.
that would have
Did you?
been good. Yeah, we didn't do that. No, I think we're too busy trying to learn the fucking songs. I mean, it's, well, it should have been like guerrilla outfits first, then learn the songs. But
Yeah, I think that should
uh,
have been.
yeah,
Black Box Recorder then was very different, wasn't it? It was very
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of polished and poppy.
Well,
Well,
I think there was second and third albums were kind of poppy, I suppose. The first album's fairly kind of minimal. First album's the one I like best.
is
Um,
that the one with child psychology on it?
it is, yeah. England made,
That was such a great song. Such a
yeah,
brilliant song.
it's good that one.
There was huge posters around. I lived around Kingston at the time, and there was huge posters of that on billboards and stuff. I thought, fucking hell, how
Right.
it's got that with that chorus.
We were pretty surprised when the record label put that out as the first single. I mean, we just thought it was like a good, it was we kind of enjoyed writing it, and we liked recording it. It was one of those things. I remember we were saying, it's really, one of the great things about being on a major label is when you do get the chance to like do your weird arty cassette idea, and you can do it properly in the studio. And it's like we think we're going to put this out as the first single. Really, fucking hell, okay, well, it's your funeral, you know.
Life is unfair. Kill yourself or get over it.
Yeah, well, and it's
Mine should use that.
yeah. Well, it's been a kind of it's been a hit with the TikTok viral kids, unfortunately. So it's like it's clocked out like 50 million plays on Spotify now. So
Wow, great song.
it's the hit single that should never have been.
Yeah, that is amazing when you think about it.
Yeah.
Everything that you've done seems a little bit subversive, and well, definitely from Baader Meinhof onwards, at least.
Yeah.
And so I was amazed that that was getting such a big push. And yeah, what happened to her? What was her name? The singer?
Sarah Nixie. She's still She makes the occasional solo album, but I think I don't know, she didn't. I mean, I think she's actually recording an album right now. But yeah, I don't think kind of making albums is the priority in her life. Yeah, she's not that bothered about being a pop star or whatever.
Have you ever thought about, like everyone else is doing, reforming in some shape or form, Auteurs or
No,
no?
no, because it's not. Certainly, the Auteurs would never reform. And I'm sort of doing. I'm still pushing ahead, doing new stuff, and I like the feeling of doing new stuff. And I like the feeling of being one of the people who hasn't reformed.
Right.
It makes me feel good about myself. Uh, and I just think it's not what it was about, really. It was never really about kind of becoming a nostalgia thing, becoming a nostalgia act. It just reminds me of, and when I was younger, we used to kind of laugh at bands like, the Searchers, who have now finally split up, I believe, but, who'd be like getting back together and splitting up all the time. You just think, Jesus, what the hell is this crap? And I just think, I feel like that about a lot of the kind of the 90s bands who are back together.
I know what you mean, but I've got to say that
If
because
you're back together.
I was totally with you on everything you just said. But as far as reforming Eater and stuff like that,
Yeah.
When if it's a one-off, if you're not doing it like all the time, which would be stupid, I was surprised at what I'm saying is I was surprised at how much fun it is to actually do it, because I always thought like you, but then we were off decent enough amount of money to think about it, and I thought if the first rehearsal was just stupid, then forget it. But because it was, this is fucking great, and so that mitigates it a little bit. But I do agree.
Well, the thing is, obviously, there's a thing of like when you're older, you're not going to be like a bunch of dickheads like you probably were when you were younger. So that makes it better for a start, doesn't it? You kind of you've lost that kind of like everyone's a bit older. They've got a bit more of a clue of how to handle themselves and how to behave. Maybe.
I'm not playing with any of the original people, and so that gets rid of any baggage that might be there in the first place.
There you go. Yeah.
But I do agree with you. And so Oliver Twist was another album that I really.
Weird.
I was the consistency of it, of being really into an artist, for me is it says a lot about how much I like them. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if someone has written one great song, I'll accept I won't listen to the rest of the stuff, but I'll accept their genius for writing that one great song. But it's hard to find people that are consistently writing songs that make you very kind of enthusiastic about it. And with Oliver Twist, that was like much later now, from
2001, I think, the album. Yeah. So that was in the middle of kind of doing Black Box Recorder, and the record company. The record company were going to drop me, I think, because it was Black Box Recorder was a different record label, and then the Oliver Twist record came out on Virgin, which is the label I was on for all the Auteurs stuff. But because we had a hit with Black Box Recorder, they then Virgin then thought, well, you can have hit records, so why don't you have one with us this time? So instead, I gave them the Oliver Twist manifesto. Which wasn't me being perverse. That was just the record that's the record I had in me at the time to make.
But it was great. And then again, it was very kind of subversive feel to it.
Yeah. It was a weird record. I mean, it's not. It's not. A lot of people. Not many people going to mention that record to me. I don't know. It kind of. It seems kind of quite out on a limb, and it hasn't been. It's one of the few ones that hasn't been reissued. So who knows?
Yeah, I'd like to hear that again. Actually, I've not heard that for ages. I remember that my son, who was about 5 at the time, he really loved the Oliver Twist track.
Really, right? Yeah.
But then again, he did get bombarded with it a bit.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Stockholm syndrome. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that happens with people's kids, and then they say, "Oh, I've got really good music taste," you know.
yeah, yeah,
It's maybe like mine. Fucking hell.
yeah, yeah.
So, have you ever thought about doing a Christmas #1? Because that always seems like an appealing thing to do as well, to do a subversive Christmas
Well,
#1.
and when we did Blackwater Recorder did a Christmas record.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, it's called Christmas #1, and it was with a band. We did it with a band called Art Brute.
Right.
Yeah, and it was called. Went out under the title of the Black Arts, and it's crap.
That's a shame. That's a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I I hold my hand up so that I only wrote sort of the chorus. So,
Right. Let you
which
off.
is and but it had one good line. We'll fill the charts with joy. Fill the charts with joy in the season of Noddy and Roy, which I thought was
I've thought about writing a subversive Christmas #1 hit, but
yeah,
it's very difficult. I've started it a couple of times, thought, man,
yeah, yeah,
I don't know about that. But
yeah. I think it's one of those. I mean, it's so kind of it's such a sort of juggernaut. It's kind of, I don't know. I think the only way to kind of do something subversive, it would be almost kind of accidental. Then would it be subversive? I don't know. Probably not. I don't know.
yeah, I'm trying to. At the moment, I'm quite pissed off about the things going on in Israel, and
Yeah,
I've got kind of my family are sort of connected. My dad was Egyptian, so I've got a kind of connection. I know lots of people that have lived and died there, and
yeah,
so I feel quite strongly about it. And I've ever since I had an interest in that, I've thought about writing a song about it. But every time you try to write like a protest song, it comes out like that. But I've got something I'm working on at the moment, which I think is all right, because it doesn't have any sentimentality to it or any
yeah,
kind of. But it's so fucking difficult getting. I know I'm not going to use it if it doesn't turn out right, but
yeah.
no one will fucking hear it. But it's really hard, isn't it? Getting
I mean, I wouldn't know how to approach something like that. I don't know. I would just kind of go for the jugular with it. I think would be the only way. Like I said, I think you just have to go for kind of a scorched earth policy, as it were.
yes. Well, they like that, don't they? So
They like it, so yeah, yeah.
I admire that. Okay, well, I've got a few questions that have nothing to do with music to ask you, which are
Well,
coming to probably towards the end. How long have we been chatting now? For quite a bit. Yeah. So this is called the difficult questions test.
okay.
All right. So this is #1. What is consciousness?
Oh, that's very difficult, isn't it? Consciousness. Well, I think it's something we're kind of all. I think we're all striving for consciousness, really, because it's very difficult to be. If we're going to kind of be a bit kind of Zen and Buddhist about it, we're kind of trying to be in the actual moment. I mean, I'm not actually in the moment right now, or am I? I don't know.
If you had to describe it in a quick synopsis, or you get a gun pointed at your head and shot in the brain,
Hmm.
what would you say consciousness is?
I would say reasoning in the moment.
Reasoning in the moment. That's very good. That's an excellent answer. I'll give you your score after this.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
#2. How do I phrase this question? Do you think that free will eventually lead to the destruction of the human race?
Well,
As far as
uh,
allowing for the principle of free will to
yeah,
do anything, then that includes all the bad things as well.
yes, yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, this is a big free will. I mean, we're discounting some sort of like we're kind of discounted morality, I suppose, into that whatever morality is. So I would say instinctive free will, maybe.
Yeah, instinctive free will. I like that.
It's better
Okay.
than just a sort of free will. But we're all kind of we don't have an awful lot of control over what happens to the human race. Unfortunately,
Uh,
there are bigger forces out there.
free will can be thwarted. can't
Free will can be thwarted. Try and say that with your false teeth in.
it? Right. And what exactly is the good life?
Oh, okay. Well, a good life. Interesting. If you know, if you've got a bit of luck, you ride your luck, and you try and this is going to sound very corny, but I kind of do believe it. And you try to be a good person, whatever that may mean. But I think again, you know what you know in yourself what that is, and you kind of and you try and do your own thing. Then I think that, and you're kind people, then that will lead you to a better life, maybe the good life. You can only do your best, son.
Yeah, true. Okay, good. Good. Okay, we're getting there.
I don't feel I'm going to get a very good score for that one.
Oh, the show's going well. It's going very well.
All right, interesting, right?
Do you believe that there may be parallel universes?
Well, the fact that I'm going to stroking my chin would indicate that perhaps I do believe in something like that.
Maybe on another universe, there's a really over-the-top commercial Luke Haines who's freaking raking it in.
Yeah.
Island.
Well, I think it's fun. I think life's pretty. If you kind of go for the kind of a sort of rationalist kind of approach to life, that we're kind of born and then we're all going to die, we're going to be dirt at the end of it. That's pretty kind of miserable, isn't it? So I think it's good to. I believe not believing in kind of keeping your options open, but I think it's good to kind of be aware and keep on checking the veil,
Yeah.
and seeing what might be out there, what might be up in the skies, what might be down below. I like all that kind of stuff.
I like the mystery of not knowing everything.
Indeed, it's very well. I mean, I mean, yeah. There's a kind of. I think there's a lot to be said for coming to the conclusion that you're not when some of those of us who think we're kind of smart cookies are not that smart at all.
Yeah. And they might be focused on completely the wrong thing of what is actually smart.
Yeah, well, I think it's good to kind of acknowledge what you don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Which leads us very nicely to the next question. Do you believe in life after death?
Wow, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, gosh,
Not in a religious sense necessarily,
no,
just in
not in a religious. I think I think, yeah, I'm not having this. Put it like this. I'm not having this idea that I'm just going to like rot in the ground. I'm not having that.
Oh, same here.
It's not. I'm not. I'm not down with that at all.
Well, I'm not convinced enough that is it to just accept that either. You know what I mean? In fact, I would say there's more evidence that isn't what happened. But
yeah, and I kind of quite enjoy my sort of. I'm quite enjoying my kind of conscious life, I'm quite enjoying whatever this is that I'm in now, particularly this particular decade, and not necessarily what's going on around me, but I'm enjoying my life, and
it's quite an interesting time as well. Whatever is going on around, it's all of
yeah,
it's interesting.
yeah. I'd just like to kind of basically continue my my travels indefinitely.
Yeah, I would like to think this is a part of a journey.
Yeah, I haven't had enough,
Yeah, exactly. I can't. I mean, I don't even see. I've spoken to quite a few. This subject comes up quite a lot on this podcast, and
yeah.
I'm quite interested in what other people think. And there's a lot of, especially socialists, for some reason.
Yeah.
Never. I can tell what people are. I've got a political test. I think I've kind of done my political test on you. I'll give you the result in a bit.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that when they say they don't believe in anything, they think just you die and then that's it.
Yeah.
It's like they've never even wanted to think about that,
Yeah. It's much more. There's much more. I think life is more interesting if you kind of, if you can, you know, if you kind of embrace the unknown, or kind of, because if you, unless you embrace it, you're not going to really find anything, you know. And that's why we have an imagination. That's why, you know, that's why there was William Blake or whatever, you know.
That's it, totally. It's why we have an imagination. It's a great way.
Mhm.
I think, and also it's just too boring to think you just get buried in the ground and people will forget about
It's
you.
so boring, you know. And we have to do our best to make, you know, to make life less boring than it sometimes can be, than other people would want to make it, you know.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
important not to be. I tell my kids, you know, you know, apart from, you know, being like kind and nice person, it's very important not to be boring. You know,
Mm,
never
yeah.
bore people. Don't be boring.
Out of anything you can do, don't be boring.
Don't be boring. It's
I was,
fucking terrible. You know?
I was talking to someone the other day about whether you look the part for something that something interesting you're doing, like being a musician or a writer or something. And people that look the part tend to be the most boring often, I find. And the people
Yeah,
that don't,
that's true. Yeah,
you know.
that's
But
true.
anyway, so I think we've concluded that test. You've scored very highly. You've got
Yeah, that's
18,
good.
20 on that.
That's good.
A very random scoring system.
Yeah, well, I'll take that. Yes.
And I would guess on the
Do I get a
political
certificate or something? Right?
stereotype test, I would say you score neither left particularly or right particularly.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not aligning myself to any of these people. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm
I
with
don't
you on
like them.
no, I think that's got to change a little bit. There's,
Well, they've got the people have got to change a bit for me to be aligning myself
yeah,
with.
I
They've
think
got to up their game a bit because I'm not
they
happy with it.
they really have to up their game and they have to make it so that it makes some sort of sense to get involved in this ridiculous kind of charade. But I
Yeah,
think
I'm very much. I'm against sort of like apathy in these things, but and sort of to a point, I'm against cynicism. But you know, you really have to present something. Certainly, you know, to the likes of someone like me, you know, that I'm actually interested in. I'm not fucking interested in any of these fuckers, really. You know, I think this is a very shoddy lot. All
if
across the board.
I agree, there's no leader that I can think of or political person I can think of saying, wouldn't it be fantastic if they were in charge of things? There's no one at all. Out of
Yeah,
everybody in the world, right? Not necessarily just politicians, just any actor, fucking
yeah.
artist, whatever you like. If you could choose anybody in the world to replace our current leader,
Oh, right. Yeah. Well,
it can be anyone.
live,
Any,
living dead. Does it matter if they're dead? Yeah.
no, they could be dead.
Peter Cook.
Probably would make no fucking difference as well if
Yeah,
they were
Peter Cook would be fun. I think.
Peter
Yeah,
Cook. He would be fucking brilliant, wouldn't he?
yeah, he'd be fun. Yeah, it's one of those things that you could almost any sort of random person, and it would make no fucking difference. It could just be any like Nigel Mansell or Peter Powell, you know, whatever. It just doesn't make any fucking difference. You
I
know?
think maybe George Orwell might be
George,
quite.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
As I
yeah.
said, it really wouldn't make any difference if the person was dead.
Quite,
Anyway,
yeah. It
so
doesn't.
you're in
Yeah,
the shot.
yeah.
Anyway, it's been brilliant talking to you, Luke.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, yeah, I've enjoyed it very much.
You're very much like I expected you to, or hoped
Well,
you would.
okay. Oh, that's good then. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Often when you meet people that you really admire, you know, especially in music, it can be a big letdown to meet them. I remember
Yeah, yeah,
I really love Sparks, and then I got to meet them in the 80s, and
yeah.
the sheen went off the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but with you, it's been a pleasure, and
Oh,
so
well, I'm pleased. Thank you. That's nice.
I'm going to dig out my copy of the Oliver Twist manifesto now.
Yeah,
And
sure, I might even listen to it at some point. I've listened to it for years. So yeah, yeah,
great album. I love that little bit in the middle of it. That kind of, you can imagine
oh,
Oliver
yeah,
Twist tap dancing along.
yeah. Yeah.
Great,
All right.
nice one, mate. All right,
Thank
so
you.
take care. Enjoy the rest of your
Yeah,
evening.
yeah, yeah. Okay. See you
later.
around. Ta-ra.
Speak.
Bye-bye.